60% of people say their family is the most important aspect of their life. From a personal standpoint, I think that statistic makes sense. I imagine you've met someone who talks about how important their family is to them. Or maybe you're the person I'm referring to. From a different statistical standpoint, children who live with their biological parents are 20% to 35% more physically healthy, while 85% of parents who adopted report their child being in excellent health. In other words, our family structure has a direct impact on how healthy we are as individuals. Of course, not everything is sunshine and rainbows when it comes to families though. More than 30% of children experience a major change in their household structure before the age of 6. Now the point I'm trying to make after all of this is that families aren't perfect and achieving a 100% winning dynamic isn't possible. As a result, certain laws that deal with privacy don't even allow organizations to share personal information without the consent of the source individual, even if they're a spouse. One of the best examples of a law that exists with strict privacy stipulations is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. As a result, we're left with asking questions that may seem to have an obvious answer, but require deep explanation. One of those common questions is, can a family member violate Hipaa? Hi everyone, I'm Matt from Tactics, and today I'm going to explain whether or not a family member can violate Hipaa. Before we get started though, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the button below. While you're down there, hit that alert bell icon next to it as well, so when we post new helpful content, you get notified. To truly determine whether or not a family member can violate Hipaa, you have to turn to the law itself. The Hipaa privacy rule states a covered entity may use or disclose protected health information, provided that the individual is informed in advance of the use or disclosure and has the opportunity to agree to or prohibit or restrict the use or disclosure. In other words, medical professionals can share certain aspects related to their patient's PHI with their spouse, family members, friends, or other identified persons. According to the Department of Health and Human Services, the Hipaa privacy rule permits healthcare professionals to share their patients' health status, treatment, and payment arrangements. So now that we know what the law says, let me explain something called professional judgment. If you went to the HHS's website and read all of the different scenarios they give, you'll soon realize a pattern. They use the verbiage professional judgment often. What exactly does this mean and why do they use it so much? It's up to the medical professional to keep their patient's best intentions in mind when disclosing any of their sensitive information. As an example, people pick up the prescriptions of their family members all of the time. The medication someone takes is classified as protected health information, yet when you go to the front desk, the pharmacist or technician asks you a series of questions like which prescription you're picking up, whether or not you're the individual this prescription is for, and the date of birth listed for the person who has the prescription. Based on the way you answer these series of questions, the medical professional on the other side can judge whether or not you have the patient's best intentions in mind. If you've done some research on whether or not a family member can violate Hipaa already, you've probably run across material that states that you have to get a patient's written permission before sharing any of their information. This is actually a common misconception. According to the HHS, you only have to get a patient's verbal permission. Even with those requirements though, many health organizations establish a policy that requires written permission for disclosure from its patients for documentation purposes. Although the law doesn't require permission granted in writing, it does require continuity. If your organization requires consent form signage, you have to adhere to that policy. There are always exceptions to every rule, especially within the healthcare space. Now, what happens in this scenario when an illness or injury incapacitates a patient? You might not have time as a medical professional to ask for permission to share information about an emergency situation. This, as everything else within this video, goes back to professional judgment. Let's say the patient falls victim to a car accident and requires emergency surgery. In this scenario, the surgeon may use their professional judgment to determine that it is appropriate to call the in case of emergency contact on the person's phone and discuss with the individual on the line about the person's condition. Regardless of what type of situation, the most important factor to keep in mind when determining whether or not sharing information with a family member or friend is a Hipaa violation is if doing so would be in the best interests of a patient. Now, after watching this video, you might be surprised to learn how much leeway Hipaa and the HHS gives medical professionals when it comes to sharing patient information among family members. Now, even though this leeway exists when it comes to sharing patient information among family members, there have been real instances where the HHS had to step in and fine healthcare professionals for oversharing information to unqualified blood-related individuals. I'll go over some specific examples in another video. If you'd like to learn more about Hipaa violations, reach out to Tactics. And you already made this far into the video, so you might as well like it, share it, and comment below. Well, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to our YouTube channel.